All right, man. So we're all set now. So what's going on, brother? How are you? How's your day going?
Going hectic. You know how it is, right?
Yes, yes, to say the least, man. It's like you can only control so much, and then the rest is kind of all just up to fate, you know?
That's right. It's beyond our control.
Yeah, exactly. Did you do an ice bath this morning?
I didn't. I actually, it's funny you say that. I just made a post about that. I was like, listen, I didn't, I totally messed up my morning routine this morning, but it's all good because I'm going to do it as soon as I'm done with what I'm doing right now and realign and get back on it.
Yeah, yeah. No, the reason why I asked is just because I had been seeing the consistency with it a little bit more, as far as like your stories go. So I just wanted to kind of be like, hey, did you get yours in today? You know, it's crazy the way the one time somebody asks and you're like, you know what? Damn it.
It's all good, brother. I mean, look, it's consistency over time, right?
Yep, exactly,
You
exactly,
know, if you're
man.
going to miss a day or two here or there, you can't beat yourself up over it.
Exactly. And the longer we dwell, the less time we have to make the better decision in the present moment because we're just sitting there hoping we don't make the same mistake while we're presently making the same mistake.
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
Well, I really wanted to have you on, man, because I wanted to know a little bit more about you. And the whole premise for the podcast is to get people early on in their journey and to get people who I kind of see a lot of potential in, and I know that they're not going to just kind of start something and then give up. It's more like I watch people to see who's consistently growing and who keeps pushing out positivity and progression and doing it in their own way. So I wanted to definitely have you on, get to know more about you. And I noticed something on your Instagram specifically, that tends to be where we focus most of our attention towards now, more so. So I mean, on your Instagram, you know, it says you believe that happy customers drive the bottom line. Um, can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, for sure. First of all, I want to say thank you because, just hearing that means a lot to me. So, you put a lot of stuff out there and you don't always get feedback, but when you do get feedback, I'm super grateful for it and it totally like reinforces everything that I'm doing. So I just wanted to start with that. But, happy customers drive the bottom line. That's been my motif, even before I was running my own businesses. I started I started my, I guess, customer service experience working in Phoenix, actually, at Sky Harbor Airport.
Okay.
You ever been there?
I have not, no.
So it's a pretty big airport, but what I got out of that was, in an airport setting, everybody is kind of in this mindset of, I got to get to the gate. They're not present at all. They're
Yeah.
rushing around. You're being hoarded around like cattle. And it's a very dehumanizing experience. And I worked in one of those, like checkout spots where you can pick up a quick gift or like a magazine, kiosk center.
Okay. Okay.
So when I was working there, as an ambitious young Alex, I wanted to move up and demonstrate leadership to my leadership. So, I thought, well, what's the best way I can do that? And I guess that would be to have customers give positive feedback about me. So that was my, catalyst to start experimenting with, bringing joy to people one by one. And as I did that, I started noticing, well, people are buying more from me than they're buying from other people. Like, why is that? Turns out it's that additional effort that I was putting in, that positive attitude that I was putting in, that was bringing them more value than just, some guy at a kiosk, blah, blah, blah. Like I would make it my mission to try to uplift their mood, you know what I mean? At least as they're moving through this airport, maybe they'll remember one person who, tried to make a positive effort on their experience here.
Yeah.
So it all started there. And, I left that job and then I ended up other places and eventually I started my own business. And when I started that business, it was in a competitive space, which is home improvement and restoration. I'm based in central New Jersey, and there's a lot of old historic homes here.
Okay.
And the market is competitive because the businesses that were already serving that market had been established for years, 50 plus years, 30 plus years. And I was the newcomer, so I had to think of a way to break in. And the first thing that came to mind was, well, we're just going to drive this bottom line by making sure people are happy. And ended up, that's exactly what drove down the cost of our customer acquisition, because we would get more referrals because it was pleasant to work with us over other businesses and other service providers.
Okay. Nice, man. No, that's nice. That's awesome. And so was before that, whenever you had first started into all that stuff, whenever you were kind of like, what developed the character that drove you into even getting to that point? Because I know that a lot of people, when it comes, because you preach a lot about leadership and accountability, and I feel like leadership and sales kind of go hand in hand. If you're going to be a good salesman, if you're going to be a good, anything, you need to have at least good leadership and good accountability involved with that. And I talk about that a lot as well. But what kind of influences did you have prior to you starting your businesses and being kind of at the kiosk and all that stuff? What kind of drove you to kind of developing that idea in your mind that I need to stand out a little bit, or I need to kind of take that leadership role and be innovative and not kind of, because a lot of people just go with the flow, man. Like a lot of people just, I'm here to do what I'm told and that's it. You know what I mean?
Right.
So what drove that inside you?
So that's a great question, and that kind of goes back to my father had a business of his own, and he immigrated from Bulgaria, and I watched him build his business as a kid, and the leadership and accountability actually beyond my father also came from my grandfather, both of which had always demonstrated, to go above and beyond. Neither one of my father or my grandfather has been one to just go with the flow. They take extra steps they'll take more responsibility than anybody else to make sure that they're delivering. Everything came down to, delivery and providing more value than anybody else. Like my dad told me a story once that once he had to deliver on a project which was actually in Manhattan after 1993 when the first bombing happened at World Trade Center.
Mm-hmm.
So he got this contract, which was like a huge contract for him at the time, and he wanted to make sure that every T and every I was dotted and crossed, right? So what he ended up doing was he built out he was in millwork, so he built out a bunch of cabinets and, basically fine finished carpentry stuff to go install at the lobby at World Trade Center. And he wanted to make sure that it was going to happen no matter what. So he rented 2 trucks just in case one truck broke down, so that if that did happen, they could take the cabinets from one truck and put it to the other truck and not show up with any excuses, and just get the job done.
Wow.
So, stories like that, watching, listen, he was running a business a lot. So, he wasn't at home during the day, I was with my mother, but, coming home, the time that I did spend with him when he was at home, that continued to go, you know what I mean? Like he had routines, he had, specific ways that he did things. And when you would ask, like, why are you doing this way, Dad? He would explain it to me and it would make sense. It made a lot of sense to me. And I think most little boys look up to their dad, and I don't know, I look up to him a lot, and he definitely instilled that accountability and leadership component into me. Now, I'm not saying the guy was perfect, right? Like there was a lot of things that he did that I said, well, I think we can improve on that. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And that's where the second part of it comes in, the emotional work that you need to do lead, you know?
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. And I actually, I had seen that on your profile and stuff as well. And with everything that you put out too, I noticed that also, just the fact that, and it's something that is, I think, being more, uh, kind of touched on now, but it used to never be, because I feel like a lot of the stereotypical, oh, we got to be in charge, so we got to hide our feelings deep down. We got to,
Yeah,
stuff down a bunch of stuff. We got to blah, 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 because we got to drive sales. We got to do this. We got to do that. We got to revenue, profits all day long. And it's like, well,
100%.
that's all important. But I mean, if you're not taking care of yourself and your own intentional, morality behind what the hell you're doing, the whole company is going to get thwarted just because of the fact that you're not there mentally. And that's really
Exactly.
what I love about your work and kind of like what you're doing. And I love the fact that, your father and your grandfather kind of just instilled a lot of that discipline early on and kind of was willing to explain things to you. I think a lot of the parents nowadays get so frustrated with their kids, they're not willing to take the patience and like the time to
Yeah,
explain things to their kid. It's kind of like, no, put that down, or no, don't do this, or no, don't do that. And it honestly is crazy because it kind of seems like it stems from like their own not wanting to be judged from an outside standpoint.
oh,
But
absolutely.
yeah, man, it's crazy. And
Sometimes it's multi-generational, you know what I mean? Like, people
yeah,
can carry pains from their parents or from their grandparents that got passed on to them that, they never did the work to, deal with those traumas or pains, and it gets passed on to the kids, and the kids aren't even aware of it.
yeah, no, exactly. And it's crazy because it's like they don't become aware of it until they either see kind of maybe how far down they go down the rabbit hole a little bit, and how far they have to climb themselves out of their own hole, or like, cause you come to a lot of realizations as you get older. And when you start to kind of like dive yourself away from the original influence that you were kind of accustomed to, and you start to develop your own little system, it can be very overwhelming too, especially when you're trying to navigate in today's society in like 2019. It's crazy, like coming into
Yep.
brand new stuff with all the new apps that you have to do this and be yourself this way and that way, and it's insane, man. It's really insane. And
Well, just
so
to kind of like go back to what I was explaining, with watching my father, right? And this is where the awareness of the emotional component of leadership came into play. He was so hard set on delivery, right?
mhm.
That he wouldn't take the time to, hear out his employees. He wouldn't take the time to listen to what else was going on in their life. He wouldn't make that space. It was more of a, we're going to get this done no matter what, mentality. And, that's great. And it worked for so long, but I also saw it take a toll on him and everybody else, and I always wondered to myself how much more he could have done, if at that time, like we're so fortunate today that, these things aren't taboo to talk about, and like more people are able to speak about them and do the work that's necessary, where it could have gone, like what it could have been, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's crazy, and it's crazy to see the amount of I guess you could say like there has been a lot of progress with a lot of people, but it's still kind of one of those things where it needs to be discussed more. Like it needs to be there needs to be a more awareness of it to be fit for service within yourself.
Right, right.
That way, because with a lot of these business leaders and a lot of these people, kind of you can become a very substantial person very quickly, especially today. And so if that happens,
Yep.
you know what I mean, that can also deplete very quickly as well if you're not ready. It's like
You need to be
having
crystal clear on your why. You need to know
exactly
exactly why you're doing it, because
and
if you
dive
don't, you
and,
end up
and
going to pay a cost.
and dive deeper into that as well. Like I think most people just ask, like they're like, okay, I have one why, that's it, and they don't dive deeper into it either. Like they don't ask, well, why is this my why? Like why like they don't get curious enough. I feel so that emotional connection between why they want to change and what they're actually doing isn't quite there. You know what I mean? And you can tell the ones that it actually clicks with, because those are the ones who are actually taking action, like you and
Yeah,
like how I try to do. You know what
taking
I mean?
action.
It's like it just, you can always tell. And so, you know, one thing that I know you're all about too is a strategy mindset. So can you talk a little bit about what a strategy mindset is for you?
Yeah, so a strategy mindset revolves around a goal, right? And basically understanding that you don't need to necessarily compete against other people, but you're going to ultimately be competing against yourself at the end of the day. It's a very like Michael Jordan or like Kobe Bryant like mentality. You know what I mean? Like I'm not even
Yeah.
looking at my competition. You know, like because I need to be. I need to understand what's stopping me from the inside, not from the outside, because everything on
Exactly.
the inside is going to be mirrored and reflected back to me on the outside, right?
Yep.
So that's where the strategy and mindset comes into business as well. I experienced this early on in my entrepreneurial career where, you know, a lot of the times I would hire the wrong person or I would make the wrong decision. And what I came to realize over time was that these are my own fears of not accomplishing a goal that I'm set out to accomplish, right? And those fears would become blockages and they would take me in the wrong direction. You know, I hadn't done the real work at that time to actually be clear on what was going on, right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of the foundation of what I mean by strategy and mindset. Now, how do you translate that into actual business strategy? You know what I mean? How do you create and collaborate with people so that you're not putting together a plan based on only what you're seeing? Because other people are going to see different things. And working together and creating an environment to collaborate and make a strategy together is a lot of how I operate and how I do my strategy.
Yeah. So it's like, I get what you're saying, and I like that. It's almost like creating your own little avenues within yourself so that you can further kind of put that perspective out in a way that is able to resonate with others to where they feel like they can do the same, so it can all cohesively kind of work together. And I think it's really important. I actually kind of have that same notion within myself, and I kind of refer to it as like a Rolodex. But I completely agree with what you're saying. Like, you've
Right.
got to have your own little roadmap as to what you're, as to who you, like, based on who you are as well, because that's kind of why I do what I do, is just because I feel like a lot of people aren't aware and who they are enough to get through those fears, because they don't know what to attack. They don't know like what is causing them. They don't know, you know, what these blockages are consisting of. They just see the blockages and they're kind of like, well, you know, I don't have enough self-esteem to feel like I can really get through that right now. So I'm going to just continue on this comfortable path and not really focus on that
Mm,
right now. You know what I mean? And then,
exactly.
and I'm sure
I
you
love
can,
what you said there. I love what you said there with like what to attack, right? Because that resonates with me. You know, one of the books that I read early on was The Art of War, right?
hmm
And I'm looking at The Art of War and I'm saying, well, as I'm reading this book, I'm like, hey, it seems like a lot of these strategies are applied to business. Have you ever read it?
I have not, no, but I've heard a lot of good things about it. I need to.
Okay, yeah, it's a great book, and definitely put it on your reading list. But you know, what was interesting that I found about it was one of the strategies that Sun Tzu describes is the landscape, right? A lot of times you are viewing things through your own lens, right? You're not necessarily seeing it for what it is. And it's important to have multiple people looking at that so that you do know what to attack for real and not, you know, based on your own lens or your own insecurities or fears or judgments, right?
Got you.
That
Yeah.
might not be the most effective way forward. You know what I mean? Like you need to understand the landscape for what it is, not what you see it as.
Exactly, because there's a lot of different things like the ego that can play illusions that can make you see certain things. There's certain distractions out there. There's certain things. I understand what you're saying too. It's almost like you have to be able to, view it with such a clear and open mind, but you can't always do that because you're the one that's inside of it. Like, and to get that feedback from others to really see like, hey, this is what I'm seeing. And you can kind of be like, oh, okay, you know what? I maybe didn't see that. I didn't even notice that. It's almost like a math problem you just cannot solve, and then someone comes in and is like, well, you didn't carry the 4, or like you didn't do this, and it's like, oh my gosh, like that was such a
Right.
like mistake, but I can't believe I didn't see that. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, man, that's awesome. So um you are you from so your father moved here from Bulgaria, you said?
Yes. So my
Okay.
father moved here from Bulgaria, and my mother's Brazilian, but I was born here in the United States in New Jersey.
Okay, awesome. And your grandfather, was he in Bulgaria when he did his whole um I forgot what the business was. Um but was he in Bulgaria when he had the business?
So no, my father was the one with the business, and
Oh,
he
okay, okay.
built. Right, right. So my grandfather was an engineer in Bulgaria, and
Okay, it was the engineer. That's what it was.
when my father emigrated here, he built his business. He bootstrapped the business like from the ground up, essentially.
Literally. Okay, wow.
No investment, just sweat equity, hard work, long hours. You know, yeah, I guess it's like the typical immigrant story, But
Yeah. Well, so
I
so what
think
was
as it,
Oh, sorry, I
go
didn't mean to
ahead, go ahead.
interrupt you. But what was your kind of because of that? Like, what was your kind of childhood like? Like, what were you growing up with? Were you like kind of scraps and just whatever you could eat type deal? You know what I mean? Like what was your did you have like were you privileged enough to have a little bit more, or did you have like what did you grow up with? You know what I mean? Essentially.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I think it's a pretty unique situation the way I grew up. So by the time I was born, my father's business was doing well. Um, we had moved to a new town, a new house, and all was good. Um, my brother, I have a younger brother. He was born 2 years later, and we had a great, however you want to call it, typical American childhood. Around the age of 5, my parents split up and they got divorced. After that,
Okay.
I went and I moved with my mother, right?
Okay.
And my
And
father,
did your did your
go
brother
ahead, go ahead.
did your brother live with your dad, or did your brother and you split up, or were you guys together?
No, we fortunately stayed together, um, and we both lived with my mother. He's my younger brother, and when that happened, my mom didn't work after we were born, so it was a very quick shift from abundance to non-abundance, right?
Got you.
Um, whatever the details of their divorce was, my dad uh, he wasn't continuing to provide for my mother essentially. So we went from having to not having, and later in life, I look back at that because there was definitely a lot of feelings about that growing up, right? But later in life, I actually look back at that and say, well, actually, that's my advantage, right? The fact that I wasn't in just one situation the whole time. I've experienced abundance and I've experienced scarcity. I have, both sides of the coin to draw from.
Yeah. And you were
So
you were uh
there
you
was a
were
lot,
5, right? Like when that happened, you said? Like whenever you got that
yeah,
shift?
it was like 5, 6.
Okay. And if you don't mind me asking, what age were you whenever you had that shift from like the resentment to like, okay, I need to
Oh
use this
man.
as like fuel or whatever?
Years later, my friend, probably around 19 years old.
Oh wow. Okay.
I mean,
No, I
I'll share. I remember the moment. I ended up going to college out in Arizona, which is like across the country from New Jersey, and it was right around it was 2008 when the economy took a turn, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And I was paying for school myself. I was paying my way, and I lost that job that I had at Phoenix Sky Harbor. And I remember calling home, right, and being like, "Hey guys, I need help." Well, my dad wasn't getting any work, and my mom didn't have a job at the time, so they literally said to me, "We can't help you."
Like, yeah, like we can't do nothing
And
for you. Like, oh man.
yeah, exactly.
Jeez.
And my dad's like, "Listen, son, you're 19 now. Like you're gonna have to figure this one out. Like, unfortunately, we have things to figure out ourselves right now." And I remember like breaking down and and crying and being in my car and just like feeling like I had nobody, like completely
Yeah.
alone. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I
And
can
just
imagine
completely
that,
just like
man. Like I can imagine because
it was
that's a hard time and that's a really like an influential age, especially like even to be 19, it's for like you to be on your own at that level is another whole feat in itself. So I can completely like empathize with that.
awesome. But in that moment, after I let it out, I had the realization. I said, you know what? You've been dealing with shit like this your whole life, dude. Like, you've been set up for this exact moment. You know exactly what you need to fucking do. You need to go out there and fucking find some money, my friend.
Yeah,
Like
exactly. Like
if you think
you
this
get
is
off your
hard,
ass.
like, and like essentially, I looked at it and said, like maybe that was the reason why, maybe out of my control, out of everybody's control, maybe all those things in the past, happened to me in service to me, you know what I mean, to set me up for harder times in the future, or maybe it was to set me up to lead, or maybe, I don't know what it was, but something came over me and was like, no, you got this, brother, you got this. And that's kind of when that reframe happened, when I looked back and said, it's all good, man. Like that all happened exactly for this reason. Like you got this, dude.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy the way that like everything happens as it is supposed to, but like you don't realize it until after the fact. Like, and it's really weird the way that like all of these insanely painful moments in our lives become like the purpose in which we start to create our like new foundation on. Like it's insane to me because that happened to me also, and I just remember hitting that wall where you're just like, you know what, no more. Like I've been going through this my entire life. I'm gonna take control of something, and
Exactly.
move on and dig myself out of this crap because that's ridiculous and that's awesome, man. And so once you kind of hit that realization, is this when did you start the business? Your first kind of business, was this after that? Like I'm assuming, right?
Yeah. So that was when I was 19, and then when I was done in Arizona, I ended up back in New Jersey. And the economy still wasn't doing that great. And when I was a kid, I used to race motocross, right? And
Oh, nice, dude. That's
my
awesome.
dad, nice, thanks. My dad used to basically use that passion that I had for racing to teach me work ethic. So he had a friend who owned a painting business, and he asked him if I could work with him during spring breaks and summers, to earn money to buy the parts that I needed for my race bike.
Hmm.
So through that, I learned a skill, which was historical restoration, right? And when I came back, I looked around and I said, well, there's restaurant jobs that I can try to get, or, I could try to go to a staffing agency, which I did. And I didn't have much luck with getting any good payment. I think I was getting like $8.50 for this one job a staffing agency gave me. And
Gee.
I said, this isn't cutting it. This isn't cutting it. Like, I'm not getting paid $8.50 an hour. Like, it's just not going to happen. So I said, well, what can I do? Well, I know how to paint houses. I know how to, specifically restore old houses. So maybe I should start a business. All right. That's what I did. So, I went out, incorporated, printed out some flyers, started stuffing them in people's mailboxes, which turned out was illegal, and I didn't know that.
Oh,
But after stuffing about 1,000 mailboxes, I got a phone call. And a gentleman was asking me to actually simply power wash his house because the economy still wasn't doing well, and he just was looking for some maintenance. And, he was willing to pay, I think it was like $300 to have me
wow.
do that.
Dang.
So I was like,
I thought you were gonna
300
say,
bucks.
yo, I thought you were gonna say, you got a call and they were like, hey, I'm suing you. You can't do this. Or oh man.
Yeah, right.
But hey, man, a
Glad I
three
didn't
hundred
get that
dollar
call.
call after 1,000 rejections. That's something, man. That's a win.
Yeah. Actually, that's interesting you say it because I haven't even thought of that. Yeah, I guess putting 1,000 out there was 1,000 rejections. That's a good reframe you just gave me there. But so I got a call from this guy. He's like, yeah, can you power wash the house? Blah, blah. So I went out there and did it. It ended up taking me like 2 or 3 hours, and essentially was making like $100 an hour, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, damn, this is awesome.
It's all
So
depending on how
that
quick
went
and the
on for that
quality. Yep.
summer. Exactly. And I mean, if you know me, I don't do anything half-assed. So, we did a great job. Anyways, that went on for the summer. We picked up some painting work, inside, outside, some more power washing jobs, some, deck restoration jobs, and we did all right. And after that summer, it just stopped. And basically the business failed because there was no more flow of work. And what I didn't
Yeah.
think about was the fact that it was a seasonal business. So early on, that was, I guess you would say, my first failure in business. So I ended up going back to that guy who I worked for when I was a kid and continued to work for him. And I noticed, a lot of the complaints that he was getting from his customers were around customer service. And they just, the work was fantastic, but the communication was horrible. The
The most important part.
cleanliness of the most important part, the cleanliness of the work site, was to his standard, not catered to their individual standards. And I said to myself, I think there's another opportunity here.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So that's, going back to happy customers, that was another point where a realization came, and I said, all right, so, what if we took the same quality of work and also, added another layer on top of it of clear and concise communication with homeowners, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's exactly what I did. So I think it was probably about 2 years later, I actually opened up a new business, right, which was also a painting business, but now focused on homeowners and not historical restorations. The one thing that I realized was that it was going to be difficult to teach people the skill that I had over
Yeah.
a short period of time, right?
Yeah.
It was going to be hard to scale.
Yeah, especially like with that, you definitely need, and you need people who are going to be like willing to go at it in the long haul because it's hard work.
It is hard work. Exactly. So from that, essentially, we went to basically dumbing down the business and providing a simpler service, but offering a much higher customer service level, right?
Okay.
Another huge complaint that I was hearing was, oh yeah, we'll call this person and we'll call this person. We'll never hear back from them. We made it a point to pick up every phone call right away, so that as soon as you called, you were on the other end of the line with somebody else. You were speaking to somebody. And just that was generating more leads, and just that was getting us in front of people to provide them with quotes and estimates, to continue on with the sales process.
Oh wow, really?
So all these little like optimizations, all these little improvements all along the way in the customer's journey, right, ended up growing that business out.
Wow.
It was so simple, but so much of the competition wasn't focusing on that. They weren't thinking empathetically. They weren't paying attention to customers' needs and complaints and pain points. They were simply looking at it, well, I'm the best guy around. My work is fantastic. You should hire me.
It was like
Without getting them.
It was like a results-driven pissing contest.
Exactly. Exactly.
It's like insane. So
But
that's
the thing is,
though. That's interesting though. So the level of customer service over the actual amount of what you guys provided in the services, that totally just completely flip-flopped everything. Like that little level of optimization. I really think that trickles down to human beings also.
100%. I mean, it's empathy, right? Like you're putting yourself in the other person's shoes, trying to understand what is the actual problem that they're trying to solve, right? Like,
exactly.
Sure, you can, you can present them with, it's like, what is it? The man with a hammer syndrome, right? Where like the man with the hammer sees every problem as a nail, right?
Yeah, I love it. I love that too. Yeah.
Right? It's not necessarily the case. Like, again, going back to the strategy, like it's not actually seeing reality for what it is. Like you're projecting your own beliefs on top of stuff. You're not being empathetic. You're not listening. You're not optimizing based on customer needs.
Yeah. And I think people get confused with that. Like, I think people, like, because they always hear all the time, like, and I say it too, put things out in your perspective, And I think it gets kind of like thrown in the wayside to actually be empathetic towards the customer, towards the person you're trying to like reach, the demographic, but also do it in a way that is personalized to you. Like have that level of ability to resonate with your audience, but still be personal to you as well, without having that thing where it's like, okay, I'm just spewing out my beliefs onto you, and this is what you've got to do. This is the cookie cutter way. And if you don't do this, then you're not going to see the results that you need to, or something like that. And I think a lot of people do get caught up in that little syndrome, and their way is the only way. You know what I mean? And I really like what you said about what you said, a customer's journey, because I think that that's very important to include that. Like I think that customers should be able to feel like they're being taken on a journey with the business that they're going through. It shouldn't just be like, oh, I'm just gonna get this service from this business, because that's not creating longevity between or like trust and relationship between you and the customer that you're trying to build, try to build that rapport with. So I love that you said customer's journey, man.
It's there's definitely a shift happening where more leaders are moving away from a transactional, a transaction based on one transaction, essentially, to a lifetime value of a customer, right? People are to the fact that, these customers are going to be with us over time because they're loyal to our brand, not necessarily, the price point or anything like that. And that all comes from the culture and the connection that you make with these people, right?
Yes. Culture and connection. I love that. That's so true. And I think that, a lot of these companies too are like just fighting for significance in such a like saturated market, because with social media now, everybody's their own business at this point, or everybody tries to be. So it's like to grab that attention and to have it lifelong, and to create the value that equals the lifelong, kind of relationship. I think that's like what Gary Vee does really well. You know what I mean? He creates that, you want to be a part of his kind of atmosphere, and it's not temporary.
It's
and I think
he's building a culture.
Exactly. And it's the way, even like, if you go into different genres like hip hop or something, it's the reason why Travis Scott is able to create such a huge fan base that he is as well, just because of the culture that he's created over the last, decade and a half. And it takes time. And I think that people want to see kind of like results right away. So they try
Yeah,
to, be everything right away. And it takes a
totally.
lot of time. And I think people are in such a freaking rush, man. Like I've probably been at this probably for a year, and I'm not expecting to see these crazy amounts of shifts and results. I'm just trying to build relationships and build value with
One
people.
by
So
one.
that way later on it helps. You know what I mean? Everyone.
That's right. And it's one by one. It's one by one.
And that level of patience is hard nowadays. I notice for people just because of the amount of attention that our attention span, man. Like it's like we focus on the next profile, and that just trickles down to focusing on the next human being. It's like, oh, I always want to talk to another person because it might give me this or it might give me that,
100%.
and it's
I
not.
also noticed that, these days it seems like to tie into what you're saying, it seems like work ethic isn't a thing anymore. Like, at least that's what I think. Like, I see people who do have work ethic and who are experiencing success, or who are definitely on their way to success. And then, I see a lot of people who, like you said, have this entitlement mentality, who think that just because you put out, a couple pieces of content on Instagram or LinkedIn or whatever you're putting it out on, that, all of a sudden now you're just going to have a successful business. Like, no, like, it's going to be a lot of work, time, effort, bunch of failures, sand kicked in your face. Like, you're going to learn all kinds of things about yourself that you never knew before. You got to have the patience to go through all that and just trust that, the work that you're doing is going to get you there.
Exactly. It's like a blind faith that you have to have. And you have to not even focus so much on the outcome of what you want to happen. You've literally got to focus on loving the process of what you're doing. And I think that
Exactly.
people forget that. Like they forget because they want results. I mean, who doesn't want results? Who doesn't want money? Like, right? Like, who doesn't want all the accolades? That's fine,
Yeah, I
whatever.
want
But
all that too, man.
yeah, exactly. But at the same time, like I feel like that level of desire has to match your level of passion for your process. It's like if it
For
doesn't,
sure.
it's like if it doesn't, then you're not going to receive all of those byproduct things. And it comes with like a price tag of time. You know what I mean? It's like, well, how much
For
time are you
sure.
willing to devote to that dedicated passion? And then just even if it doesn't amount to anything, that's why they always say, like, if you find what you love, it's like you don't work a day in your life. It's like, well, because you're not
Right.
working, you're just doing what you love to do. And that's why I think
And how do you compound that time? You take action, and you keep taking action.
massive action, and that's why you have to love
You
what you
don't
do.
exactly.
Because if you
Exactly.
don't,
Get in your head, you're dead.
you're not gonna want to go, above and beyond with something that you hate or you're not interested in. Like it doesn't even make sense.
Listen, I learned that the hard way. Talking about all this historical restoration work, I did that out of necessity. I did that because I didn't take the time to find my passion, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's where this like super high level of discipline, a lot of it comes out of that. You know what I mean? Like just having to do. I didn't love that. By no means did I love that. But I'm still thankful that I learned that lesson the hard way, because moving forward, I know that you have to be doing things, with passion. I mean, you can hear it all you want, you know what I mean? Until you have firsthand experience, like being in the trenches, it almost doesn't hit you hard enough. Or at least if you're a thick-headed guy like myself, like it doesn't hit you hard enough until, you're in the trenches, living in the suck. But, sometimes you gotta go through these experiences.
Yeah, no, and I completely agree with that. And I always say, experience always trumps just education. Because like when you have firsthand experiential knowledge of something, whether it was the right thing or the wrong thing, you have that under your belt. And you know what I mean? Like
You lived it.
you can be in the books all day. You could have your head in the books. You could have straight A's. You can have straight A's in the book of whatever. But if you don't have the experience in the school of hard knocks, you know what I mean? Like you're not going to
Exactly.
really understand fully.
The streets, man. And honestly, it's funny you say that, because honestly, like, the best information comes from the streets, the school of hard knocks. The internet moves fast, but I mean, I always find the best information from conversations with people, networking, like what we're doing right now, like finding out what's going on, like over here and over there, like you're going to get firsthand information before it gets onto the internet. And like I said, the best, most quality information comes from the streets where you can really, absorb the other person's energy and everything.
Exactly. No, I completely agree. And that's another reason why I started the podcast and did all that, because I didn't want to, just be looking people up on YouTube and Instagram and Facebook and just like having it stop there. And I only get what they give me, from each platform. It's like, no, I actually like,
Right.
I'm interested in people. I'm interested in people
I want to
doing.
talk to you.
Yeah, exactly. Like I want to get to know you. I want to get to know what you're doing. I'm curious as to like how you're navigating in this new world of technology and stuff, because everybody's doing something, it seems like. So it's like, why not capture the new wave of inspiration and motivation? And it's like, yeah, the Tony Robbins, the Jay Shettys, the Gary Vees, they're only going to be around for so long, and it's like there's going to be a whole new wave of people, and I just want to be able to get those
100%, brother.
firsthand,
100%, bro.
get that
Exactly.
experience and be like, hey, I knew Alex when he had a business that ended up, failing, and then he came back and he, started a new opportunity from that. And then now look at him and he's doing all this stuff. You know what I mean? It's just, and it's cool to follow like you and other people and really kind of like build these relationships, because who knows what could happen later on. And one of the things
that's the beauty of the internet, right? Like it kind of created a meritocracy where, you will be rewarded for, the work that you put into it, so like the cream will rise to the top,
That's 100%. Yeah, that's actually 100%, because, and it's not easy either. I think that people think that it's just a matter of, I gotta post
I never
this.
said it was easy.
Yeah, it's like, merit, work, merit. Yes, it's gonna take some work. One of the things that kind of resonated with me that you had said and you had mentioned earlier is like the fact that you did historical restoration out of necessity, and it wasn't like something that you had like intended upon doing. And it reminded me kind of I don't know if you probably have heard this story before, where Steve Jobs took the like calligraphy class like way back when. And then that's how, and then years later, when he was developing Apple, that's how he figured out how to develop like the right font and all that stuff, because he actually like learned about it like maybe a decade before. And that kind of reminded me of that, because it's like, just because you don't do something that you think is going to give you any value, there's like principles of the thing that you're learning or going through in that experience that you're going to carry over. And it might be, a principle of, oh, hey, I shouldn't do this again. Or it's going to be a principle
100%.
of, hey, I need to make sure that I need to do this again. Or I need to make sure that I need to remember this next time. And
100%.
And I think that that's like something that people are afraid to even like undergo. Like they're so afraid of failure, and they're so afraid that they might succeed, that they don't even try to learn. You know what I mean? They don't even try to take that first step to developing any skill that they feel is necessary. Is there something that you do that helped you, or that you did do that helped you kind of like really figure out who you were and kind of find your real passion, which is like, helping people and like driving the leadership, accountability, and all that stuff?
For sure. So it was through building out that first business, and then later, actually, the first business that failed, where I was sticking the flyers in the mailboxes, and then the second business, what I found through building those two businesses was that where I ended up spending a majority of my time was in the marketing part of the business and the business administration side of the business. Eventually, I was able to hire people on to take every single job that I had made for myself, because, most people don't realize this, but if you start a business, you're ultimately making a job for yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's years down the line that you have an asset. So every time, I started hiring somebody on to take on a new responsibility, I always found myself going back to the marketing and the business administration, and I never actually hired somebody to do the marketing for my business. I did hire somebody to do the business administration who he was much better at it at me, and like sometimes I would even wonder if he was working because he was so good at it. But He was driving results, and I was like, all right, dude, whatever. Go home now. I don't care.
Do whatever you want, I guess.
Do whatever you want, man, as long as you're doing your job. But yeah, that kind of drove me to that. And then, the leadership part of it, I'm still on the fence on whether leaders are born or they're made. I'm not really sure. I'm sure some of them are born. I'm sure most of them are made. I was made, through learning from other leaders. I always gravitated towards leadership in any kind of role that I took on, if it was for myself or for other people. I always found my ability to take the group and bring their ideas together and then march forward as a group to be something that I liked to do. I had a passion for, like they say, leaders are called. So, I always felt this like strong pull to bring the group together and solve problems collectively. And then just through, experience, learning and, learning, like I said, learning from other leaders. I remember once I had a boss that told me, Alex, you work too hard. You need to take a break. And I was like, what? Are you kidding me? He's like, dude, you're going to burn out.
What is that?
Exactly. And, I honestly didn't take him seriously. And within 2 months, I burned out. And, he was gracious enough to be like, yeah, man, take the time you need to get what you need and come back to work. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That was a learning experience right there. I later had employees who also had that crazy work ethic, that crazy, like, I'm a workaholic, right? And I would tell them, hey, guys, you're going to burn out. And they had the same reaction I had. And then when they would, I would give them the time that they needed. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I had learned that from someone else. So a lot of the lessons that, or a lot of the techniques or tools that I use to lead, I've learned from someone else. And that's, I guess, yeah, that's kind of my passion, and like I said, to go back to the marketing, now I've dived into marketing and marketing for other people. And, a lot of the things that I do for my clients now, I learned firsthand, with marketing my own businesses in the past, getting distribution, hacking attention, how to get people to call you, taking them through the customer journey, doing all those things, I learned that firsthand. I've made a lot of mistakes that fortunately, I had done in the past that now I can bring value in the future. So,
yeah. No, that's awesome, man.
And it doesn't feel like work.
Yes, exactly. And that's the goal. Like, that's the goal. You know what I'm saying? And I love that, like you said, that you made a lot of mistakes because, the mistakes are what drive the results. You know what I mean? Like, you're not going to have progressively good results if you're not progressively making mistakes. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I still make mistakes.
Exactly. And you're not afraid to make them. That's the difference, I think, between the really, like, the really good leaders. Go ahead.
I was going to say, we're probably going to say the same thing, but, like the path to success is through failure.
Literally. It's almost like how much of the failing can you both do and learn from, because the sooner you learn from the amount of failures you have, there should be like a quotient or like some kind of like equation that says your amount of failures plus your learning squared or something equals success or something. Like there's got to be some kind of like, success quote or equation thing. But because all right,
it's all a reframe, right? Like
it literally, yes.
Is it actually failure, or is it just an opportunity to learn how not to do it next time?
Exactly. And that reframe,
like, where does this failure component come in? Is it judgment? What is it? You know what I mean? Like, are you afraid to be told that you're not good enough? What is it? You know what I mean? Like what really is failure? Like, it's all on the inside.
It's mostly just irrational fear. Like, failure is just all just irrational fear.
It's just a word. It doesn't exist. It's an abstract concept.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
It's like failure to who? To what? Who even invented this word?
That's what I mean. What are we even describing here?
And I love doing that too. I love because, it's funny how we utilize these words in our minds, and that's just the end all be all. So we decide to like tell all of these stories to ourselves based on these like pre-constructed words that we just manifest our own beliefs within. So it's like if you just retell your story, you tell yourself different words, or you refine, like you reimagine what these words mean to you. You create your own little beliefs around everything, and you can create your own system and reframe your own way of your strategy mindset. You know what I
100%.
mean? Like, and one
100%.
and one thing that like one like common theme that I noticed with you, and it's why I think that you're such a great leader, and why I think you're able to do what you do, and why you're going to continue to kind of thrive in what you do. And I think uh, great leaders have this ability to transfer energy, and I really think that like your ability to see all of the negativity and transfer it into something more productive, more positive. It's like something that you've kind of like had this knack for your whole life. You know what I mean? And when you can even see something like mistakes or other employees burning out or something like that, you can sense that and you can transfer it in and be like, you know what? If you need to take the time off, you need to do that. If you need to do this, and you can empathize, and you have that awareness level. And I think that that's like one thing that you won't lose, that is going to always continue to be there to continue to keep you being even more of a great leader, especially in the future.
No, I appreciate it.
Yeah,
I
man.
appreciate
No,
you telling me that.
yeah, dude. No, and I can see it. I can see it. I can hear it. I can hear it by the like the validation like within your words, like the conviction with what you say. You can just tell. You can tell that you believe in who you are, and you know exactly who you are. You know what you found is true to you, and that it's something that you really love to do, and it's something that you're passionate about. You know what I mean? And I can see it in your posts. I can see it, on all of your socials and stuff. And I'm pretty sure we've.
Likewise, brother.
No, I
Like
appreciate that,
attract
man.
like, man.
I appreciate that. And again, like that's why I like doing these and building these relationships, because you never know what could come in the future. You could say something that might spark me. I could say something that might spark you. We might talk in the
I
future
say
about
that all
something.
the time.
Exactly, man. Exactly.
You're planting seeds, and you got to nurture, and then one day you'll harvest.
Exactly, man. And I completely agree with that. And I love your message. And we've reached the hour. But one thing that I always like to ask everybody is, what I really want to know what your version of success is, and if there's anything that you want people to go to, if there's any links that you want people to see specifically, if there's anything that you're offering, and then just any advice, any last minute advice.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, my version of success is true freedom, and having that sense of freedom, which is also known as presence. So, an external validator, which would be, money or a private jet or any of those things, is not necessarily success. And in order to be successful, you have to claim success. I think anybody can be successful at any given moment, no matter where they are in life, because it's a feeling. My understanding is it's a feeling of freedom, not having control, being able to do what you want to do, having passion. So that's and I consider myself successful because of that, because I do feel that sense of freedom to go after what I would love to create. So that's the message I want to share. Another, a friend of mine, we just started our own podcast, which we haven't launched yet, but it'll be coming out soon. Anybody who's interested in more, mindset, self-actualization, or spirituality stuff could check us out at Until the Next Bench, where we collaborate with others and bring people onto benches in New York City and have deep discussions about self-actualization. And hopefully through those discussions, it can light a fire in an individual and get them on their journey to self-actualization. Also, just want to follow me. I am Alex Eick on Instagram. That's where I put out a lot of my content. And want to learn more about me, that's where I'm at.
Awesome, man. That's awesome. And I look forward to, let me know when that podcast launches as well, because I look forward to hearing that and kind of seeing, the people you have on and listening to that. And then I can also share that with my listeners as well and my followers also, just so we can help spread the message and spread the word, because I'm all about that as well, man. And, I really appreciate your time and I thank you for coming on. And I just want to say you're definitely well on your way, and there's a lot of great things that are going to be coming to you, man. But just keep going and keep spreading the message that you're spreading, because you're definitely helping a lot of people. It's definitely something that I am all for, because I'm kind of the same way. I'm all about self-actualization, self-awareness, really knowing who you are and using that as your superpower, you know what I mean, to put things in your perspective and get you out there. And so I really thank you, man, for coming on, and I really appreciate you telling us your story and telling everybody everything about you and stuff like that. So we'll get back on it, and
Thank you
we'll,
for having me on. And I
yeah,
appreciate all the work that you're doing too, man. I mean, we're on the same path here. Like, we're just kind of expanding the knowledge base and, turning people on, like unplugging them from the matrix, as Tom Bilyeu says. So,
yes, exactly. Hell yeah, man. So we'll I'll continue to stay in touch, and we'll keep going back and forth. And if there's ever anything, any promotions or anything like that, do not hesitate to let me know, so that way I can let everybody in my network and in my realm know as well. So good vibes, man.
likewise, brother. Likewise.
Good vibes, man. And we'll talk soon. We'll have to get back on it here in the next few weeks or something.
All right, man. Thanks for your time. Thank you so much.
Later, brother.